Hello and welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Machine Shop Mastery Podcast. My name is Paul Van Meter. I am excited today to have Jim Carr from Carr Machine and Tool on the show. I've known Jim for a long time. He is the host or co-host of the Making Chips podcast, but he's also running a 50-year-old shop that his father started and he took over 18 years ago. So Jim has some great wisdom and advice on being culturally driven, the importance of culture, um, really being inclusive with your employees and sharing. He talks about the importance of being marketing and sales driven. Really sort of elevating your brand in the marketplace and how that can drive new revenue and clients and opportunities. So uh, looking forward to having you learn from Jim. Let's go ahead and jump in. Here's Jim Carr. Jim, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Paul, good morning. It's got to be early out on the Pacific West Coast, right?
It's 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Not too early.
No.
Went to the gym with my son this morning and made sure I got back here at my desk in time to do this with you.
Good for you. Good for you. That's I'm a believer in
you're
staying healthy.
I know you're
I am a gym guy.
Yeah.
It's something that we should all do religiously and consistently to keep us young and virile and all those good things.
Well, we need to keep our endurance because running a machine shop is very, very hard business. So
No kidding.
Let's. So I feel like this is a little bit of a long time coming. Obviously, I've been on your show a number of times, but I'm really excited to have you here and have you share your wisdom with my audience.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
For those that don't know much about you, let's start by getting to know you a little bit better. Tell us your story, the story of your shop.
Okay. The shop is 50 years old. How much do you want to know? You can cut me off. Yeah. So my dad was the founder of this machine shop in December of 1972. So we are in our 50th year right now. As you can see behind me, I've got the 50 branding of Carr Machine. Pretty proud of that. It's unbelievable that we've been 50 years. But yeah, as far as me in the show, I did not go to college. I remember at the age of 17, 18 years old, I was a senior in high school. My parents came to me and said, Jim, would you like to follow in the family footsteps and be part of the manufacturing company? Or, we'll pay for you to go to a four-year university and get a college degree. If you opt to go into the family machine shop, we'll send you to a machinist apprenticeship program. And Paul, I really thought long and hard about that as an 18-year-old kid. I really did.
It's a big decision.
Yeah. And you know what the drivers was? I said, my parents have a decent house and my dad drives a Cadillac. So I guess they're doing okay. So so I thought, this is probably going to be the best way for me to achieve some kind of success in my life in the fastest way possible.
Sure.
Did I know the road bumps that were going to be ahead of me? No, absolutely not. But, you're still faced with those every day. So I entered the business in the late 70s and worked on the shop floor as a manual machinist in my dad's machine shop with about 5 other machinists. And then in the mid 80s, we decided to integrate CNC technology to the shop floor. We did that. Yep. I took that task. It was successful. I remember my dad running out of the office out into the shop. I was on our Fidel CNC, and he showed me the how we tracked our time on paper, of course. And the office manager would check off a quarter hour under each job, under each paper, and he'd say, "Oh my God, Jim, you just did that job in half the time that what the manual machinist was doing." He goes, "This is really a good idea." And I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, it was all new to all of us. We didn't know what technology really was. We just saw what everybody else was doing. We were following suit. So that was the 80s. And then in the 90s, I started managing, the shop. And then I went into the office and did all those, purchasing, HR, all those things, all those hats that a small manufacturing company has to hold on to. And then in
Hmm.
2004, I took over as the single shareholder and president of the company, and then have growing, and we've grown
2004.
since then. 2004, so I've been in this role
18
for 18
years.
years. Hard to believe.
Wow. Yeah. Very exciting. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Is that enough
And
about me?
that, well, tell us what Carr Machine looks like today now.
Completely different.
Hmm.
We have maybe 3 times the employees, 3 times the sales at least. Um, my son Ryan, who is third generation, is involved in the business now and has been for about 8 years full time. Of course,
Oh,
he
wow.
worked here as a high schooler and college student on his off
Hmm.
hours, but now he's our operations manager and part of our leadership team. So it's a definitely a new business. It was deliberate to make this change, and you know, it's all been good so far. But
Hmm.
the growth path has definitely had some roadblocks. There's no question.
Oh, every successful company has them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't be, you couldn't, couldn't get to where you're at today without going through
Absolutely
roadblocks
not.
and learning from them. Right.
Sure. Absolutely.
Um, in the first, the downturn that I was a part of in 2001 and two, it almost put us out of business, and we learned a lot from that. So when 2008 happened, we were way better prepared, and didn't affect us nearly as badly.
Yeah, it was good up
But
to about
yeah.
2000, and then in 2000, right after the turn of the century, it
Hmm.
went to heck.
Yeah. 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 Well, 9/11 for our shop, because we did mostly aerospace back then, was a huge blow. So
I'm
it
sure.
was tough.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So the goal of our show, of course, is to you know try as best as we can is to share the wisdom that you've learned over the years with folks maybe a little younger in the trade or looking to start a shop or grow their own shop. So what would you say is sort of your biggest wins, best strategic moves the company has made over the years,
Well,
best decisions?
I would tell you that if you're thinking about starting a shop, you better be prepared for a lot of hours.
Mhm.
You better be able to have thick skin, because it's not easy, right? It's
Of course.
difficult to start a new shop, and it's difficult to retain, and difficult to grow. But I do believe that the effort is worth the reward at the end of the
Hmm.
day. And
Hmm.
you've got to be passionate about the industry. If you're not, I would stop
Oh,
right now.
yeah, yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Well, so many shop owners, were employees in another shop and decided to, I could do a better job than my boss, and I want to, you know, be the boss. And have heard time and time again, it's way harder than they ever thought. From coming off the shop floor.
it is.
So
So new things that you asked the question was, and new things that are going on here at Car Machine. Is that what I heard you ask?
no, sort of just best strategic moves you've made over the years.
Oh,
I
okay.
in the time I've kind of been exposed to Carr Machine. I've observed you seem to be very sales driven, very marketing focused. Really sort of out in the market and sort of in people's face, and I know that's a lot of shops don't take that approach,
They
right?
don't.
And so
So
I know that's
yeah.
yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I can definitely elaborate there. So I would say going back right around the time that I took ownership of the business in '04, I really felt as though I needed to get out of my work on the business rather than in the business. So I really
Hmm.
made a concerted effort to start networking. So through my local manufacturing association, who we've been members of for decades, we never really were intimately involved with them. So I reached out to somebody there, and started. I joined some committees. I joined.
Hmm.
I would go to their social events. Now, who doesn't like to be social, right? And then I
Hmm.
started meeting like-minded people, multi-generational manufacturing leaders in those networking events. and I started growing my network that way. Um,
Hmm. Now,
it
was this for the express purpose of finding clients or just learning from your peers?
I
And
thought I could find clients, but it's just a peer-to-peer relationship.
right.
I put a lot of time in with that. As a matter of fact, it was so successful that they invited me to join their board of directors and then consequently their executive team. And then I was the chairman of their board for a year. That's a 1 year term, 4 years
Hmm.
on their executive team. And I met some absolutely fabulous people that I've learned so much from, that I'm still friends and will be friends until I pass.
Hmm.
But that was part of the journey for me, and these are the things that the stepping stones. And then when we really started to ramp up, I kept hearing about culture, how important culture was, and it seemed like the people that were practicing culture in their shops were the ones that were really having good success. So I thought, maybe there's something to that. So we developed our core values. We had a list of 20, and we ratcheted them down to four, which is manageable and easy.
Hmm.
And then I hired a full-time sales manager, John. That really helped. I didn't have to worry about that. I knew that because the thing is, when you're an owner and a leader, you can't do everything. You have to start really
Sure.
thinking like an owner, and you have to delegate responsibilities. Um, I'd always had a passion for marketing, so I really amped that up. Early on, I was using Facebook and LinkedIn to promote
Hmm.
Carr,
Yep.
Carr Machine, uh, and I got recognition for it. So much so that I went on a Chicago radio station to talk about culture from and marketing, um, and met Jason Zanger, that was the network that created our podcast back in 2013. So
Wow.
yeah, 2013 already. And then
That's amazing.
moving forward from the years there, implemented EOS Traction, the book Traction,
Hmm.
an
Yep.
entrepreneurial operating system, having a quantifiable and structured way to run your business, creating a leadership team, having quarterly rocks or quarterly goals, annual goals, long-term goals, writing them down. Really
Hmm.
important, really important. These are things that my dad didn't have any clue about years
Hmm.
ago. So,
So do you feel like these are things you had to learn? Like, what did you have to learn to become a leader that you didn't have as a machinist?
um, trial and error, Paul. I mean, it was
Hmm.
really trial and error. I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, and that's when you're going to
Hmm.
get your biggest bang for your buck. And I've even done a podcast on it myself with making chips. Is I feel like we're in this bubble. Remember the old Pong game years ago? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, you sure
Oh, sure.
you're a
Oh,
little younger
yes.
than me, but that Pong ball's going back and forth and back in that rectangle.
Yep.
But guess what? If you open up the parameters of that, and that's you bouncing around in your life, if you open those barriers and make that rectangle a little bit bigger and push yourself just a little bit out of your comfort zone every so often, guess what? Your box is going to get bigger. You're going to grow. It's not going to be horribly painful if to extend it just a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what we all should be doing in our personal lives. Um, But, other things that I did is putting Ryan in an right person, right seat. So
Oh,
just
yeah.
defining the people that are passionate about what they're doing internally, um, putting Ryan in an operations role, um, and a selfish plug, but ProShop ERP was a big change to our business. It really helped us manage the business in
Hmm.
a process oriented way. Um, Yeah, those, and then AS 9100 most recently, we've been AS for about 14 months now. We had been
Hmm.
ISO for decades and decided
Right.
to make the jump into AS. And then just in July, we moved. We're 300% bigger now. brand new, first class, high tech
Mm-hmm.
aerospace machine shop that hopefully I'll be able to share with the world via social soon. We just had IMTS out yesterday doing a
Oh, exciting.
big video of our shop, and they're going to use it in the promotion of the show.
That's exciting.
Yep.
Very cool.
One
Very
disclaimer:
cool.
you're gonna have to shut me up if because I do like to talk, as you know. So if I'm talking too much, just cut
No,
me out. Yeah.
this is we're interviewing you today. Um, so let's talk. I want to get into your sort of your client base and the type of work, but you mentioned process. Um, you said I mean, you run your shop very differently than your dad, right?
Com- Completely.
Was there a lot of process involved in the way your dad ran the shop?
No, there
Okay.
was not. He was just acting on emotion more than anything.
So he'd get a job, put the drawing, buy material, put the drawing out in the shop, and you guys would just go at it.
Pull some stock off this. We used to have a little stock rack in the corner of the
Uh huh.
shop. And literally, this is not a lie. He'd go out to lunch with his friends who were his customers,
Hmm.
and they'd have their 2 martini lunches, and then he'd come back from lunch with a little sketch on a cocktail napkin, and he'd say, "Pull some 1 by 3 by 8 inch coral steel off the stock shelf, and saw cut it to length, and do all this," and that's how we. Not all the time. We did get a
Hmm.
little bit more sophisticated than that, but literally it was that down and dirty at some point.
Wow.
No
Interesting.
kidding. No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not the kind of work you focus on today, obviously.
It's completely different. Definitely process
S-
oriented,
Yeah. Do you feel like process is essential for growth?
without a doubt. You have to have it. You have to have structure, and because otherwise you're just going by the seat of your pants by every single job. Um,
Hmm.
Now, process is difficult to implement, but I think in the long run, after you've implemented it and practiced it for a certain amount of time, it becomes the norm more than,
Hmm.
just, an option.
Yeah. Have you, as you started changing the shop, what was that like with your employees? Were they excited about it? Were they reluctant, nervous?
Um, I think some of the employees, did not want to. Some people don't like change, right? I think the human
Hmm.
side of us does not like change. I mean, as well as I do, I struggled with it. Um,
Hmm.
and then we had that conversation, and I started, really diving into it, and now I couldn't live without it. But yeah, I think the employees did have issues taking it on. No one wants to.
Hmm.
No one really wants to try anything new. And that's just the human element, or to work any harder than they're working right now. If they think it, the
Sure.
thing is, if you after you've implemented the process, it's actually going to be a lot less work
Of
than
course.
what you think.
Yeah. Yeah. But learning is new and hard, and change is hard in that process before
Sure.
you get comfortable with it
Yep.
and understand it. So, being more of a sort of sales driven, marketing driven company, how do you think about the the industries you pursue, the diversification you have, both in industries and in clients?
What repeat the question again, Paul? I'm trying to get a little grip on it.
Yeah. I mean, I know shops that are, 95% one customer, one industry.
Right.
And I know you've obviously got AS9100 recently, so you're diversifying into aerospace and maybe defense work. Um, so how diversified is Carr in
Sure.
terms of, and do you have
Sure.
any guidelines or rules that you now use to drive your sales and growth?
Yeah, so let me a little history about that. So during the 80s and 90s, the industries that we served at that time was the commercial printing industry, i.e., the newspaper printing press companies. It was
Okay.
lucrative. It was successful. It was consistent.
Right.
Of course, every time a recession came around, there was always that pullback, right? And then,
Hmm.
we went through a few bankruptcies with that particular customer that ruled in excess of 70% of our business for many, many years. Um, and then we decided to start shifting. We could see the writing on the wall with um, everything was going digital. So we made, a concerted effort to shift into emerging technologies, I would say.
Hmm.
Emerging technologies is comprised of semiconductor, aerospace, aviation, medical, right? Those are the really
Hmm.
hot industries right now.
Yep.
And those are the ones that we're really trying to penetrate. But you asked what the customer mix is. And guess what? I have ProShop ERP that can tell me in 2 seconds what our
Jeez.
customer mix is. And I will tell you right now, the work by industry, let's go back a couple years.
And then I want to ask you the process you actually use to get into those industries.
Well, that would be a question for my sales manager, John, because he's got his own secret sauce that he uses. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
seeing one particular industry right now that has more than 11.8%. How's that for diversified?
That's brilliant.
Yes. So, and that's
So you have,
aerospace, automated
yeah.
equipment, automotive, aviation, commercial, consumer products, defense, energy, hydraulics and fluid power, industrial, robotics, semiconductor, space and exploration. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm
So
sorry. I'm
then
sorry.
that
Here's
means
a 12.4 I see, Paul. So
12.4.
not much,
Okay.
but not much more.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's solid, obviously, because every industry has its own unique ups and downs.
Hmm.
Some are more global in the economy, but you know, each industry also does as well. So that means you don't have any one customer more than 10% of your business, then, or
Well,
something like
12
that,
point.
right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. If you have some multiples in the
Let me
same
look by
industry.
client. I can do that
Yeah,
too.
our guideline was that we didn't want our any particular one client to be more than um, our targeted profit margin. So if they completely went away, we could still sort of cover our all of our costs and potentially, theoretically break even. But
Right. I
so
can
yeah,
honestly say that as well. I could not say
right,
that in the 90s. I could
sure,
not say that in the
sure.
90s. Um, s- I've got a 26.9% here. Oh, yeah, that was an anomaly. We had a really, really, really big purchase order in that. Other than that,
Yes.
by
Oh
customer,
yeah. Sometimes you can't avoid a client
you can't.
growing, huge for some shorter period of time. Yeah,
I don't see anything that's greater than 7.7%.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, that's fantastic.
it's healthy. It's healthy.
So right now, obviously, so you have John, and he is focused exclusively on sales and new sales. Does he manage existing clients, or just is he really just a prospector?
He manages existing clients to a point, but once they're your client for a long time, it doesn't take much
Hmm.
to manage. Um, I would say John's really good at prospecting.
Hmm. Hmm. And I know a lot of shops do not have full-time salespeople. Can you just maybe explain a little bit more about how you came to the decision that it was worth hiring a full-time person? Is that what you used to do,
That
before you
that
hired
was my
him?
role. That was my role.
Hmm.
And in full transparency, John came to me and
Mm-hmm.
asked for a job. He was
Oh,
selling
nice.
CNC.
Good for
He was
him.
selling CNC machine equipment and was not happy in that role. And approached me on a Saturday morning because he knew the owner was going to be at the shop and said, I've been following you on your social, you're progressive, you like marketing. I'm sure you could give me the tools because once you commit to a salesperson, you have to commit for them to be successful is you have to give them the tools to really be successful. Same thing with your machinists or any other employee.
Of
If you don't
course.
equip if you don't equip your employees with tools to be successful, they're going to have a really hard time being successful.
Hmm.
So he said, I really think it's a good fit. So I mean, I really put him through the ringer because it was a little intimidating to me to hire a full-time
Sure. It's a
salesperson.
big commitment.
And I talked to some of my good industry friends and said, I want you to meet this guy and tell me what you think. Are you getting any bad vibes? And, just put him through the process.
Hmm.
And talked to Ryan quite a bit, and we gave him the shot. So, and it's been good. I think it was at the most part. We always talk about culture. When you hire somebody, it's really important to make sure that individual is a good cultural fit to your company and your own brand. And I think
Hmm.
John is that person. I think that he comes from, his cultural fits really aligned with the Carr family.
Right. And what are those four core values you
That Carr Machine has.
filtered that list big? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's flex, fly, play, and energize. Those are our
Okay.
four core. I can break them down if you'd like and tell you
Yeah,
what
I'd
they
love
mean
to.
to
Yeah,
me.
please do.
Okay. Let me just pull it up real quick because they are on our website, carmachine.com.
We'll make sure that's in the show notes.
Yeah. And it's under our careers page because we really want any future employee to know, in fact, what our core values are and what they mean to us. So, flex means we can adapt. We're adaptable, flexible.
Hmm.
We can move around. In a small company, you need to have that flexibility and adaptability. I love
Of
this
course.
saying, we change can't into can. So I really liked that.
Hmm.
Fly, uh, we say we fly first class, and it was kind of the impetus in this core value was if you've ever had the luxury of flying first class, you know that it's that feeling, that emotion that you feel special, right? We want our
Hmm.
we fly first class. We're top of the line in communication, transparency, honesty, and truthfulness. And Car Machine is certainly
Hmm.
not your father's machine shop. So we incorporate that first class experience internally to each other, to our customers, and to our vendors all at once.
Hmm. Hmm.
Play. We play well together. We all have a unique role, but everyone on the card team brings creative talents to our work with us every day. Our team's harmony creates a beautiful product. So that was birthed from I like music. I'm passionate about music. I have my whole life. And I always feel like Car Machine is like a band. I'm the lead
Hmm.
singer, and I have everybody else supporting me.
Hmm.
Um, Someone's on keyboards, someone's on acoustic guitar, someone's on bass guitar, someone's on drums. And when we all harmonize together is when we're really going to be successful.
Right.
Energize, we all have
I like
energy.
that.
We know that it's important to possess good humor because that energy, that positiveness, that vibe, it kind of um, emanates out from all of us and all the people that we come in contact with outside of Car. We want to create a positive energy to everyone. So when they think of Car, they remember that positive vibe.
Hmm.
That's
So,
it.
yeah, those are well refined. I like them.
Thanks.
When you do interview and looking to hire folks, how do you make sure those folks align with those values?
Good question. Um, I explain them to the person.
Hmm.
I think about our core values as I'm interviewing that person. In the second interview process, if I believe that they're a good fit, I have my leadership team interview them. And then if they make it to the next level, I bring them in and I have them interviewed by everybody in our complete company. So whether or
Mm,
not it's just a 2 to 10 minute conversation that they have, you
mhm,
know as well as I do when you meet someone for the first time and you're talking to them, if you get a you're gonna get a bad vibe right away. That's
mhm.
probably not a good sign. Um,
Yeah.
and we have been through that third round of interviews, and somebody will say, I just wasn't feeling that person, and we don't hire them for that reason.
So does anyone on your team kind of have veto power, or just they share their thoughts and you weigh
No,
that heavily?
everyone on the team has veto power. Absolutely.
Wow.
Well, I,
Wow.
I can't if they're already butting heads in the interview
Mhm.
process. How are they going to work together? How are they going to play? How are we going to play well together?
Mm. Good way to bring that back to your core values.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I like that. So that kind of leads into, I mean, obviously, I think you put a lot of emphasis on that cultural piece. I always feel like employees thrive the most when they feel empowered, when they feel like they can do their best work without being impeded by a lot of whatever. How do you think about getting the most out of your team? Empower. I mean, obviously, you talked about giving them good tools, um, but do you have any specific thoughts about how you um, really make sure they feel seen and heard at work, and empowered to make change or make suggestions,
Sure.
or yeah, how do
So
you think
part
about that?
part of the cultural shift was meeting with my team every Wednesday for 60 to 90 minutes. I
Hmm.
have we call it a production meeting, but it's just a time for all of us to talk about
Hmm.
business, work, COVID, um,
Hmm.
anything, anything that they may have on their mind. But of course, I lead the conversation with a weekly agenda, and I
Hmm.
add to that every week. And at that time, it's everyone has the opportunity to speak up and let their
Hmm.
thoughts be known at that weekly production meeting. It's all
Right.
inclusive, man.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a voice, and I want to hear what they're saying. And if they don't tell me, how can I correct a problem if they don't tell me?
Hmm. Sure. Yeah. So when you're having these meetings, I've heard different companies have different approaches on sort of financial transparency, right? Whether you share how the company is doing financially, at just the high level or more detailed. Um, how do you think about that?
I do share with them how we're doing. There is
Hmm.
full transparency. Of course, I'm not going to, pull out the financial reports and share it with the entire team, because I think it might be over their head,
Sure.
first and foremost. And I don't need to. I don't need to deliver high level financial information to everybody, but
Right.
they do need to know that these are our sales goals. This is what we need to ship on a weekly basis. It's important to track. Just last week, Paul, the one of the things in the weekly agenda meeting was, how does Carr Machine make money? I swear I
Mm.
could pull the agenda up right now, and I asked the team, and I was quite surprised that not many people really understood how we
Mm.
make money. Um, and at the end of the day, we're a service company. We're a contract machine shop, chop shop, right?
Hmm. Yep.
We sell our service. We don't design. We don't have a product. We quote a job from a print and resell it by the hours. If it takes 10 hours at $100 an hour, guess what? We got to sell it for $1,000, right?
Right.
If we're not meeting that criteria, it's simple. We're losing money.
Hmm.
We're losing our potential. So
Right.
I that's what I tell them. So
So Was it a conversation of sort of connecting the dots of like why it's important for them to make it in 10 hours,
Right.
or that
That
you
was
got to, meet the material budget, of $50 a piece or whatever? Like, yeah, what was that conversation like?
well, I didn't want to beat them up or particularly
Mhm.
call out anybody by name in a meeting,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I stressed the importance of how you have to track your time to a job. Because if no one's tracking time to a job, it's all overhead, right?
Sure.
So that's not how a successful business runs. So I'm just giving them little bits and pieces of how important it is to track your time, be on top of things, be cognizant of how much time you're putting into
Mhm.
a job. Um, and then you know, I work with them on a one-on-one basis too, with regards to time tracking and yeah.
Mhm.
But I was honestly surprised at how some of my team members really didn't understand how Carr Machine made money. So
That's
in that
super
regard,
interesting.
it was smart of me to bring it up in conversation.
Mhm. Well, if that's the case in your shop, it's got to believe it's the case in most shops.
It's important to share information like that with your team.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you feel like that helps motivate them or just get them aligned together with kind of what the company needs to do?
I don't necessarily know if it motivates them, but all I know is I'm doing my best to educate them on how the company is going to be successful because I'm investing a lot of time, energy, and money into them, and they need to know that if what they're doing on a day-to-day basis is really making the company more successful, then it's a
Mhm.
win-win for everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. So, speaking of employees, what's the demographic of your shop employees look like today?
As far as age, I have a
Yeah.
fairly young team, which is
Mhm.
great. I love working with millennials. They keep me young
Mhm.
and keep me going.
Mhm.
Sometimes a little too fast, uh, but generally, I love my staff. I truly, truly care about them, and
Mhm.
I want to know what bothers them, what their pains are, and I really try to cultivate a lot of communication. So we have 12 people. Um, 80% are under 32 and the rest are,
Wow.
oh yes, 80% are under 32. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a very young staff. And with that, there's with that minimal amount of skill set,
Mhm.
wisdom comes pains. But I think with the wisdom and the experience that I bring, and maybe one or two of another one of our team members, that
Mhm.
we kind of work together. So it's kind of like the oil and
Sure.
vinegar. So
Mhm. 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 Um, so you must be do you try to find folks that with at least a couple years of machining experience under their belt? Maybe
right.
they went to a tech school or something, but by and
I
large, you're going to
just
be teaching.
yeah, I just hired two guys that in the last 7 months that um, one just came out of a tech school. He's a
Hmm.
college graduate, and then he went to tech school after that, and then one has 1 or 2 years experience in another machine shop.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, as we all know, it's really hard to find super skilled people right now. And we do a lot of
Hmm.
training. I'm bringing CNC machinists up and training them in programming and Mastercam and um, shipping and receiving guy. We're trying to educate him to run a machine.
Hmm.
But and to the young guys out there that are listening to this, you can't come into the industry and in 18 months be a journeyman machinist programming a
Okay.
machine. It's
Okay.
just not. You would have to be Superman in order to achieve that goal. It takes years of fundamental skills and experience and on the job training to really become a rock star in this industry. Um,
Mhm.
some people are that are really passionate will excel quicker, but for the most part, it takes many years to be truly um, super skilled in this industry.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
even know
There's
it
a
all, and I've been in it for over 40 years. So
sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's yeah, there's a lot, of course. Very complicated, but that's what keeps it fun. There's always things to learn every day.
absolutely.
So, if you're like most shops, finding employees is super challenging.
Yep.
Um, is that one of your biggest challenges today, or what
No.
else are
Mm-mm.
sort of your biggest?
It's not a
Okay.
challenge.
Okay.
I think that when a new prospective employee comes to Carr and meets us, understands our culture, understands um, what our goals are, looks at our benefits package, sees the facility because it truly is a first class aerospace machine shop in all regards that has robotic technology, first class cam systems, inspection equipment, break room, and all the extra value add benefits that come along with
Hmm.
car. I typically don't, I knock on wood, I haven't had too hard of a problem finding entry
Hmm.
level machinists.
Right.
Um, but I don't necessarily know that we're really trying to find that really high end guy right now.
Hmm. Because
Of,
you have enough to get the job done.
I would say right now we're pretty good. Of course, we're always talking to people
Hmm.
that are experienced, and if anyone's listening, I would welcome that. Um,
Hmm.
you can DM me or, you know, go to our cultures page, our careers page at carmachine.com and tell me what if you want to hear more about it. Be happy to share it
Hmm.
with you.
That's great. So, what are your biggest challenges today? If hiring employees is not one of them.
Well, in full transparency, with this big 300% move, brand new facility, um, financial issues are definitely something that we have to overcome. I didn't think it was
Hmm.
going to be easy. We
Hmm.
just invested a lot in capital equipment in the last couple months. We bought a brand new Doosan 5-axis, 8 pallet pool, 5-axis machining center. We bought a brand new large capacity 3-axis mill and a robot, a machine tending robot.
Hmm.
And so, we've got that, the financial implications of that. And
Sure.
then just, my electric bills more, my gas bills more. Now that we're AS, we have a lot more overhead. So we really have to understand that financial prudency more than anything.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So that's my biggest roadblock right now, but we'll get there. I'm confident.
Yeah. Sure. Sure. So, I mean, the ones I hear most often, obviously, you're hiring employees, but it sounds like with the focus on marketing and culture and image and brand, that makes that job a bit easier. It sounds like. Is that your advice to other shops? Is focus on those things to?
Well, everyone's got their sweet spot. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Some people are better at looking at finances than me,
Hmm.
but I believe that I branding is something I do well. Marketing, I'm passionate about marketing. So when you're passionate about
Hmm.
something, you're typically successful at it.
Hmm.
It's awesome that I have this platform, Carr Machine and Tool, to market because that's what I like to do. So, um, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you did
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
So,
Um,
there's never a right or wrong answer for everybody. I think that if you have that skill in finance, for instance, and you're running a business, then you need to like really move your skill and your passion over to that part of the business first, because that's where you're going to be
mhm,
most successful. Then if you're a finance guy that is forced to do marketing, you don't like it, you may want to partner with somebody to do that marketing. But you're going to eventually have to get involved in some capacity.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I've always said over the years that we grew our shop, we had three partners and we each were like one leg of a three-legged stool, kept everything together. So,
And that was your
Kelsey was the
leadership team.
operate. Yep, yep. I was sales and marketing. Kelsey was operations, and his brother Darcy was finance. Right?
Totally get it. And
Those were,
I think you're the right person in the right seat, because I know that you're a
yeah,
marketing guy as well.
sure, sure. Well, one of the, when we went through that almost going bankrupt period right after 9/11 happened, we were very fortunate to find a business advisor that was free through the local university. But he just stressed so much the importance of being what he called a sales driven organization, right? Where you're not just, hoping for someone walking in the door or referrals or, word of mouth stuff. You're actively going out there and pursuing opportunities, doing marketing, doing sales, making calls, trying to meet companies, networking, kind of like the stuff you talked about. And I'm sure the things that John does to you know get those new relationships with engineers or buyers at companies that you don't know yet.
Yeah, he
Right.
gets in the door, and then we kind of
Yeah.
like take it from there and we grow it. So
Hmm.
he finds the person, then he pulls them in a little bit, and then boom, we jump in and we start growing that from there. So
Hmm.
typically we
Hmm.
set up a Zoom right away. I get involved and start talking technical things.
Hmm.
Ryan as
Hmm.
well. So
Hmm. I love it. I love it. Sounds like a very well. First of all, it's a process, right?
it's a
It's
process.
process driven.
It's Yep.
Yeah. Um, all right. Well, I feel like we have covered so much ground. The last thing I wanted to, we've already alluded to this, but talking about sort of technology adoption and, digital transformation. Uh, some companies and some folks are sort of early adopters. Some are sort of more mid, and some are late adopters.
To
Where would you,
technology.
yeah, to technology and just the importance of that, uh,
Yeah, I would say
for
that
success.
Carr Machine has been late to the game, but I believe we're
Mm,
really ramping up quickly. I've always been late to the game my entire life. I'm not a young man, and I started. I've been in this business a long time, and look at we've just had this growth spurt in the last few years, but it was deliberate and process driven, based on books, ERP, and pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. That's really
mhm,
what it is. And knowing that I have a good support system underneath me. I probably would
right.
never have done this if Ryan wasn't in the business, because
Hmm.
what if, I've got a succession plan in place.
Right.
But it's so important to implement that technology, and it's scary, and it's a little painful at the beginning, but man, once you're using it, it's just awesome. It really is.
That's great. Yep. I appreciate those thoughts, Jim. Um, any other things as we kind of wrapped up here? Just sort of if you were talking to someone, first starting a shop or has a new shop, what your best advice would be for them to make sure they have the best chance of long term success.
I'm thinking I'm got about 5 things in my head right now. I would say first and foremost, um, from a financial standpoint, make sure you have more money than you think you do, because it's going to cost you more.
Hmm.
Plan on putting in the time. You better, if you have any apprehension about working the weekends, it's probably not a good fit because we all work 7 days a week.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just a couple hours on Sunday morning with your coffee.
Right.
Um, you better like people, and you better humanize your employees, because if you don't genuinely care about people, your people aren't going to care about you.
Hmm.
So I really think that's a something that people just have to have, and they have to understand. Um, and have a process. Use as much technology as you can. I know when you're starting out, your resources aren't as deep as a big company with multi-millions of dollars worth of cash, but invest in as much as you humanly can into technology and process. Read a book. I mean, books, it's
Hmm.
free to read a book, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
I would highly recommend Traction. I personally, I know I've shared with you, and I've shared with the people on my podcast, Making Chips, that I don't like to read. I forced myself to read Traction. It was one of the best things I ever did. I really learned a lot about systematized ways, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Money, humanization, and working hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I can relate to those. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming
you're
on
welcome.
and spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. It's
Yeah,
nice
I
to just
selfish
sit
plug.
and chat with
If
you.
anybody wants to connect with me, just go to Jim Carr at LinkedIn and connect with me
Yep.
that way. Be happy to. Also, I want to selfishly plug that I'm starting my own podcast. It's called True Position.
Out.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's
Very
called True
nice.
Position. It's going to be more introspective than what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to
Hmm.
be sharing a little bit of the emotional side about running a small manufacturing company. Um,
Sure.
it's not going to be interview style. It's going to be me talking
Hmm.
mostly to those people that are in like positions. So look for that. If you follow me on social, I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll see when I go live, but it should be soon.
Awesome, Jim. Well, looking forward to that. We'll definitely include whatever links and notes we can in the show notes. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It's really nice to spend some time with you.
Thanks, Paul.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.